Live from the Panera Studios, it's the Reading with Robin show, brought to you each week by my friends at Panera Bread. Panera's new clean menu avoids artificial ingredients. It's real food as it should be. Everything from the breads to the cookies, it's all fresh, well prepared every single time. The Panera menu has something for everyone. The clean menu features dishes with no artificial sweeteners, flavors, or colors from artificial sources. Also included are some of the whole and ancient grains that are so popular in healthful diets, such as the quinoa and beet salad with pecans. Another exciting addition, more vegetarian options, all at Panera Bread. And now, enjoy the show. It's Pub Day. It's a debut Pub Day. Abby Fabiaschi's I Liked My Life is out today. It's very exciting. Everybody who tunes into Reading with Robin knows I get really, really excited when it's Pub Day for a debut especially. Abby Fabiaschi is so interesting. You're a human rights advocate interested in economic solutions to social cultural problems. Wow, you must be really busy. Abby climbed the corporate ladder in high technology, and then when the kids were 3 and 4, they're now 7 and 8 because I got those numbers down, decided to resign and pursue writing. And I am very glad she did as a reader. And I know Abby and I, pretty sure we met on Twitter. I feel like it was a very long time ago because I thought your tweets were really funny. Welcome to Reading with Robin, Abby Fabiaschi.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am very excited. You know, talking to somebody on Pub Day and a debut is very exciting. I know for you to be out and talking about this book that you've been waiting to share with the world. But I've been doing interviews for a very long time, and I have to say, never gets old. I'm so excited for you, like really excited that your book gets out there. And did we meet on Twitter maybe? I feel like we did. I knew about your book a long time ago.
We sure did. I followed you, and I think your work with all of the authors is just amazing and inspiring, and it gets people reading and talking about books, and that's so important. So we're so grateful, the writing community, to you and everything that you do for us.
Well, it's really passion, and thank you for that. That was really kind, and it's interesting when something starts out, of course, as a passion, and then it takes off, and where does it go? You just, oh boy, things I never even imagined, and getting to speak to authors and have all of these amazing books sitting here waiting to be read is just, it's overwhelming and awesome. And you're kicking off tonight. Now you live in West Hartford. You split your time between West Hartford and Park City. Is that what I saw?
Yes. Yep. So we'll be tonight at the library, the Noah Webster Library, at 6:15 for a talk, and then across the street to Barnes & Noble for a signing. So it should be a great event.
Oh, that's great. Oh, the Barnes & Noble's right there. Oh, right, in West Hartford. Okay, I know where it is because we're not all that far from there. So, and I noticed if you go to abbyfabiaschi.com and you click on the events, so if you're near where Abby's going to be, you can go visit her. You have a really nice tour set up and a lot of cheese. I noticed wine, snacks, but it's all some cheese and some wine. I love that. Are you a cheese lover?
I am, yes. Wine and cheese. I mean, I think books, wine, and cheese is pretty much
perfect.
Those are my passions, yes.
It's so perfect. I just love the way it says some wine, some cheese. I just thought it was really kind of adorable, and you're at some of my very favorite places. At the Tattered Cover and at Changing Hands in Phoenix. I love that bookstore. And, at Excelsior.
I'm so excited to get out, and it's nice for me. I've lived in, I think, all of the states that I'm going to, and so it's an opportunity to reconnect with people I haven't seen in ages. I'm thrilled for the chance to celebrate the book and also, see some people that I just never haven't been able to because I've been in an office by myself writing a book.
That's so cool. So a lot of these places you've lived in, so even better because there's something so exciting about people getting to see somebody that they know and that they've written a book. And so it's really cool to do that. Because I was looking at this tour and it varies. So I love these places that you're going and that you have people there. So you just post it up and say, who do I know here? Come see me. And then there are the people that you didn't know you were going to see. Not to make you nervous or anything, and they come at you, and they know it's you, Abby Fabiaschi, because they're there to see I Liked My Life and hear about the book, and you're like, let me know if any of that happens. I'm sure it will.
Oh, I will need a strategy for that. I'm sure it will. I have a terrible memory. I'm going to have to study up on Facebook and see your books, I guess.
I guess to see who's coming, because the idea of book signing, it's just got to be the most exciting thing, and of course a little bit overwhelming to see where.
I'm terrified. Yeah,
I'm sorry. Let's talk about something else. I think it's great. You know something, I go through the same thing, and maybe I can share some strategies because I have all of these very big events, and I'm the one having them, so people know who you are. And, hey, sometimes you just have to look blankly and say, I'm so sorry.
Yes. Mercy.
You must have changed your hair or something, I don't know. Or you just smile, or if you're lucky, you have someone next to you, like in The Devil Wears Prada, where it gets whispered in your ear who they are.
Everyone should have that person. Yes, I need
Anne
that.
Hathaway, right? She should just be just like an Anne Hathaway double. That's one of my favorite parts. Like, yes, she knows who it is. So to see where Abby will be, visit abbyfabiaschi.com. You can find her on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. Now, the premise for this book, and we did a giveaway on the Reading with Robin Facebook page, and I just figured it's always fun to include people in a way that makes it more personal than just, retweet this and sign your name. So I asked people what they liked about their life, and you get some really heartfelt messages. You and I went back and forth on what is now our third winner. You very kindly offered to sign a book. It's amazing. People really do want to be heard, though.
It is, and I think that question resonates with people because it allows them to think about what they're grateful for and what they enjoy. And sometimes in the day-to-day, not that you're unhappy, but that you're busy and you don't stop. So I think it's such a great question. Even when I read it, I paused and I was like, what is it about my life right now that I like? I think it's a great question. And the answer is it was fun to read through what your readers were thinking. So
I really did enjoy that. And then I know sometimes I can spend a lot of time responding, but for those kinds of questions, it feels really important to read them and to, thank somebody for taking the time to write what they like about their life. Spend some time with it. The other thing I really love about your book is that you're giving a percentage of your after tax, whatever. You're giving a percentage to charities that uplift women and children around the world. I think that's so just a really beautiful thing to add into this very special book. So do you have different charities that are, specific ones that you like to give to?
So I'm a human rights activist, which in today's day and age seems more important than ever to have some of us out there. And I started, what got me started was books. I was reading Half the Sky, which took me through some of the challenges of human trafficking, and it was just eye-opening. I was horrified to understand how real the problem is and how, it is global. It is a global problem. Obviously, we hear there are cases of it domestically, but in particular in Asia, parts of Asia, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Thailand, it is rampant and accepted in a lot of ways. And the opportunity afterwards, in the United States where you have kind of this cheer on the underdog mentality, that does not exist in those countries. It's culturally different. And so when women are rescued from human trafficking, they are often shunned by their families, shunned by their communities, and then often re-trafficked because they don't have any tools or ability to survive otherwise. So as I learned more about the problem, it just felt this strong call to action of, like the trumpets playing, if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? And I started thinking about how I wanted to get involved and kind of how the universe does. It opened up I got my alumni magazine from college, and the cover was about social work that leveraged, that was designed around establishing versus Band-Aids, establishing like fiscal independence for people. And I thought, that's the route I'd want to take, right, with my business degree. And at the time I was an executive in high tech and felt that that's probably where I'd have the most to offer. And came across through Babson, Made by Survivors, which we actually this week we're changing our name to Her Future Coalition. And I am now the board chair because I have, I think, one of those personalities where you just keep getting more and more involved in things.
We do draw in that energy and give it back to where it needs to go. I absolutely believe that. And I can just hear that coming through the passion, coming through the way you're talking about this. And on the phone is the author of I Liked My Life. It's Abby Fabiaschi's debut novel. It's out today. It's very exciting. Visit her website, and you can see where she'll be. A lot of events all over the place. So if you can get a chance to go, and I always think it's so important to support these book tours. We want them to continue. We want people to come out and meet their authors, learn a little something about the book and how it was written and why reading is so important and all of that. And if there's an opportunity to go see an author near you, go. Even if it's a little out of the way, I suggest go. There are going to be things that happen that you're like, I'm so glad I was there. Who would even have thought of this part of it? Is that posted on your website so people can see, or on your Facebook page?
It is. There's a giving back portion of the website that talks about the 20% of the proceeds that go to charities, and through the advance, that all went through Made by Survivors for a student we're putting through college and a library that we built in one of our shelters, and that work will just continue as far as we can take it.
Love that. I think that is just so important for people to know, too, when they're supporting an author in a book. And I'm glad that we got a chance to talk about that. Now, the book, and there will be no spoilers. I love, a few people have written me emails saying, I want to listen to the podcast, but should I listen to them after I read the book? And if you're new to this podcast, you don't know that, but I would never give a spoiler away. That would be horrible. That's like the first rule in book love, is never give anything away like that. And so there are things that you're going to know right away when the book begins. But can you just tell us a little bit about the premise for the book and where you got that idea? Just that nugget of the idea, where that comes from.
I Like My Life explores what happens when a seemingly happy matriarch commits suicide, and she leaves behind her high-profile, kind of type A workaholic husband and her teenage daughter, who's battling already to find her independence, and then has to add to it this guilt and grief, inherent in mourning a parent's intentional death. So they're both left with anger and guilt, and it becomes a kind of an explosive situation where they are lashing out at each other. And as Maddy looks down, she feels compelled to try and provide the sort of peace and act as the liaison that she used to in life for them. And so all that being said, it sounds like a sad book or an intense book, but I think what we did, the intent is that it's uplifting and that it's future forward and focused on how people rise above.
Oh, I thought it was, and I thought it was very uplifting and funny, and the characters, I always look at books and characters and, like, do I care about these people? Why do I want to read this book? And I cared so much about Maddy and Brady and Eve, or Evie. I'm not sure about Maddy's mother, but on some of the friends. And then, that idea of really, and I like the way it's written in the different voices, and always wonder when an author is writing it from different perspectives. Did you have a favorite child, for lack of a better way of putting it, in writing the voices?
There were certainly an order in which they came to life well. So the book was always three perspectives, but when I initially sat down with a first draft 10 years ago, it was Eve's voice that I was really exploring. I had lost a friend when I was 15, and I just remember that experiencing loss at that tender age, it was a defining moment in my life. It changed a lot of how I looked at things. I matured, but it was bitter and, not very graceful, very cynical. And so the book started with the idea of exploring a teenager going through, kind of the heaviest or worst grief imaginable. And then, I put the book aside. I don't think publishing is an industry that very many people go into expecting to have success, and I certainly didn't. And I was, working full time and writing on the weekends and at nights, and so the manuscript just kind of sat there. And then years later, my father died, and that was very unexpected. And he was my father, but he was my best friend. We worked together. We, talked every day. It was, he was only 53.
I saw that. I mean, I was looking, you dedicate the book to him, and I was, of course, I'm going to do the math. And my mother was 53 when she passed, so I was like, I know. I'm so sorry.
It's so, too young. And so, then I didn't write at all. I was pregnant and I had a newborn baby. My kids are 11 months apart, and it was just all I could offer the world at that time was to get to work and my children. And so writing just kind of completely went away. But then 3 or 4 years after he died, I was looking for a document on my computer, and there I Liked My Life was, and it just felt enormously important to revisit it now that I had had the experience of mourning as a parent and as an adult, and seeing my husband mourn and noticing the gender differences of how, not broadly, but some specifics of women versus men. And all of a sudden the book, I think, came to life because I was better able to represent, and I was a mother then, where I wasn't in the first draft. So I could bring Maddy to life. I could do more with Brady. And that's when I think the book became more powerful and interested, where the market would be interested in it. It wasn't just something that I was writing as a cathartic tool.
It's so interesting to think about looking at the perspective that you would have, and then all of that experience, and whoever knows where experience is going to come and what's down the road. But it's a relatively short amount of time, 10 years. I mean, it's long, but not really. But to have, these children and this loss, and look back on this, on the, like you say, on the document that you had. So you had it backed up on the computer. There was no, you knew it was there. It was not. I'm already thinking like, well, what if it had lost or.
Well, see, that's your conflict. That's good. That's what writers and readers need. It wasn't something that I thought about very often, the book. It just was sitting there, and I think waiting for me. So
yes, sounds like it.
Thank God we were so cheap. We had the same computer.
That is so funny because I've spoken to writers before about the process and who backs things up, and do they have it in 3 places, or people that write in notebooks still, and what happens if something, like, I get nervous for the writer, like these, these precious words, and then what happens.
Oh gosh, there's nothing worse than losing work. Yeah.
Anybody that's ever not backed something up, and on the phone, I am chatting with Abby Fabiaschi. Her brand new book, I Liked My Life, her debut novel, is out today. Please visit her website and learn all about the book and very important work that Abby's doing at abbyfabiaschi.com. Find her on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Where do you hang out the most? Where would people find you?
Probably Facebook and Instagram.
Where's Abby?
Twitter,
okay.
I'm still getting my Twitter legs, but Instagram and Facebook come a little more naturally to me. So.
Okay, so find her for the most part on Facebook and Instagram. And there's a journal in this book, and as somebody who has kept a journal for many years, the thought of anybody ever finding it is horrifying. So Maddy has left her journal, and Brady, finds it. And talk about what that's like. Did you keep a journal?
I used to keep a journal before I had kids. I did so many things before I had kids. Mm-hmm. And hopefully I will again someday. I think I write at night now, so that has kind of taken my, once the kids go to bed, that's a time that I really have productive writing. So I think, though, along the same lines, I have my journals from when Elizabeth, my friend in high school, passed away. And I think that it made me, reading through them as I was working on the book, made me think about the power of the words that we leave behind and how we write in a journal intended for ourselves, and what happens when somebody's reading that out of context, and without how problematic that could be, or the joy it could bring someone to know that you loved them so fiercely, even though we don't, sometimes we forget to tell people every day. So both good and bad things can happen, but reading a journal that wasn't written for you is exciting.
It's really, it always makes me think about that, the journal thing. And I wonder, because like you say, out of context, and then sometimes, and certainly in journal writing, it's of the moment. and you're getting
Yes.
your thoughts down, and then, the next day you might not even remember, well, you might remember feeling that way, but, it just passes, and it could be very much taken out of context. And so I always think if somebody's putting something like that in a book, I'm hooked immediately. I'm like, they get that sense of innermost thoughts and how they can impact and what we show on the outside versus what's going on the inside. So I thought that was really interesting, and it can be very comforting, to have those words. So, but it always makes me think about what people want to leave behind. And Nicole Bernier's book, did you ever read Elizabeth D? I'm going to forget the title, but her book really reminded me, like, well, what do I want to do with these journals? Who's in charge of these? Or does anybody, want to read them? But that you had yours from when you were 15 when that happened, and reading your 15-year-old self.
Yes.
Nicole's book is The Unfinished Work of Elizabeth D. And her friend in the book, the friend is entrusted with these journals. And anyway, just what you need another book for your pile. Out. But I loved that book. Yeah. But on the phone with me is Abby Fabiaschi, and we're talking about I Liked My Life. So how does the journal play into the narrative of the book, the storyline?
I think it gives an opportunity. Part of the book is exploring the layers of motherhood, and I think that the journal gives an opportunity for the husband and the daughter to understand the depth of what was happening in, their wife and mother's mind day in and day out in a way that they didn't appreciate when she was alive. So I think that there was this, a routine that a lot of families, we settle into of, the kids are going to come off the bus and there's going to be a snack and at some point there's going to be dinner and people are going to get, bathed and get to bed. And that becomes the life. And then people start to think of the mother as, this machine that's moving through and doing these tasks for us to keep the household going, but not necessarily exploring who they are at their center. And do they like that? Do they feel like they're a powerful spoke of the wheel, or do they feel unappreciated, or the difference between being loved and being appreciated? And so I think the journal gives an opportunity for the husband and daughter to really see that she was more than they realized.
And that's such an interesting concept, because when you're lucky and your children get older and they tell you that, and I remember sharing that so many times with my mother, how much we appreciated things. But, when it's the day-to-day and you're a kid, it's way different. And
yes, and so that opportunity was stolen from Eve, right? Because her mom died before she got to the age where she realized it.
Yeah, that's painful. The thought of that is incredibly painful. And also what your best friends know, when you're trying to sort of piece together a story and what happened, what friends, a parent's friend might be privy to or shared, or how honestly it was shared, or what they observed and decide is the story. There's just so many things. To me, it's a great book to talk about with friends. I always like to know about book club picks. I think it's a terrific book club pick. And I should also say, I'm talking about your events and la-di-da. You're going to be here at Point Street Reading Series. Like I buried the lead. Abby Fabiaschi is going to be at the Point Street Reading Series in Providence, Rhode Island on February 21st at 7 o'clock. Doors open, 7:30 begins. That's my reading series. I'm like, oh, Abby's going to be everywhere. She's going to be in Utah.
And I should have piped in and said it too. I'm very excited to participate.
So
every author I know who has ever been to your reading series just raves about the experience and the other authors that they get to meet. It's a highlight of the trip for sure.
Thank you. I'm very excited to have you here in Providence. So if you're in the area or nearby, people come from Massachusetts, Connecticut. Sometimes the Rhode Islanders will go 10 minutes, but the other people will drive an hour. So it's
amazing what you've created.
Thank you. It's always the third Tuesday, so the next one is Tuesday, February 21st, and you can go to Point Street Reading Series on Facebook, and Abby Fabiaschi will be there reading. Do you have your favorite part picked out already? Do you know, or do you just decide depending on the mood?
I have a couple,
a
couple places that work to read.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you have to be careful with the book, where you drop in to make sure. First of all, it always drives me crazy at readings when people have to spend 10 minutes explaining there's something about being in the audience for that where you're like, well, I want to read the book, and now I feel like I don't have to read the first 7 chapters.
Funny. Well, sometimes they'll do that. Now, this is what you need to know, and these are the characters you need to know, and then it's like, okay, your time's up, off the stage.
Yeah,
Done.
Exactly.
Done.
So I do
That's
have a couple
funny.
little snippets that I think work standalone without too much explanation. So
I like that. And the thing, too, is as an author and as a reader, because, of course, we're all such big readers, you've been to so many events, and what are some of the other things that you've observed where you're like, okay, on my tour, on the Abby Fabiaschi I Liked My Life tour, this is not happening. There will be wine and there will be cheese.
There will be wine and cheese, yes.
When wine's available, I saw. So as long as wine's cool. But anything else that you're like, this ain't happening at my party?
Gosh, I think I'm in favor of concise signings. I've been at some, that go on, and you lose your stamina as a listener. So I think that is one thing, and the other piece is to have that interaction, that Q&A. I think another thing is I go to a lot of these events. I mean, prior to even ever being published, or I'm a very active book clubber and an event goer, and so I am opinionated on what works well and what doesn't
You
work
should.
well.
Absolutely. It's like when we were going to bar and bat mitzvahs. I knew what was not happening at my kids.
Yes.
You just, I'm like, I'm very happy to be here for your blessed event, but I'm taking notes. So, of course, you're going to do that. So when you're doing
That's
a book,
exactly right.
Right. So when you're going to all these book events, and I do the same thing for my events and the panels that I do and the way I like it to run, you're never going to get everybody on the same page. But for the most part, we know who needs to be happy. So I'll be curious as you're going through your tour, what you're finding that you thought would work, or that you are
or that
glad,
doesn't, yes.
Or on a positive side, or what you're so excited that you were like, nope, I'm sticking to this. This is not happening. Or we've all been to really great events, and some that are like, like you said, you're sort of looking at your watch. And before I let you go, I just always love to know what you're loving, reading, recommending, one or two books that when you're at a bookstore and people ask you, of course, after they've already purchased, I Liked My Life by Abby Fabiaschi. Because being in a bookstore, it's the best place to you see them and you just grab books and say, oh, you have to have this one. I love to. That's one of my favorite things.
The 2016, probably my favorite book was My Name is Lucy Barton, Elizabeth Strout's novel.
Great one.
I think every sentence that woman has ever penned is phenomenal. And Lisa C. has a new book coming out that I'm very excited to get my hands on.
When is? Yes, I just saw that
in March.
Okay, because she wrote you a beautiful blurb from Lisa C. An emotional journey of love, loss, healing, and redemption. I rooted for every character, and that's how I felt about them. I loved all these characters. That was from Lisa C. I had seen her. Adriana Trigiani did an event with her at Union Square Barnes & Noble a few years ago, and it was so fabulous. So she's got a new one out. Good to know.
Yeah, she's a wonderful human. So I didn't know her at all prior to sending her an email and timidly asking her if she would take a look to give an author quote, and she was so gracious. She actually had breakfast with me.
How lovely.
And she's who you want to be if your name ever means anything. She's just a wonderful person inside.
So nice.
I
love to hear that. She seemed, certainly seemed like that and gracious, and I love her work. So nice to hear, because authors have a lot of asks of them all the time, and it depends on which end of it you're on, and it's always an end. No matter who it is, you're on one end or the other, and it's a lot of time, and it's you want to be helpful and be there for people, but it's can't always say
and it
yes,
isn't possible to respond to and to quote, and honestly their authors' names wouldn't be worth the blurb if they were blurbing every book that was asked of them,
unless you're Gary Steingart, who says that he blurbs every book, and his name still does. But no, I know what you're saying. Other than Gary, I would agree.
I mean, I was thrilled with the dialogue with it. The writing community has been so supportive in a way that I think it isn't before you get a book deal, because so many people want to write a book or have ideas to write a book or have written a book that has it. So I think there is sort of this, you feel like it's very isolated and people aren't going to be helpful prior to getting your contract, because there's sort of this jump through the hoops and have the industry validate that you've done something here, worth reading. But once that happens, then I thought it was beautiful how everybody kind of opened up and was a part of the, with quotes and giving advice and events. It's just been amazing to talk to some of these people who you admire so much.
Absolutely. From where I stand, and so many writers who I've met through the years that are just incredibly gracious with their time, their support, and I love to, Caroline Levitt's one that always comes to mind because she is just one of the most supportive writers. I love seeing that, cheering for the new book on the block. It's all great, to have so much the writing and the storytelling, and it's so important, all of the different voices that we want to share. So I think it's just wonderful. And on my end of it, getting to share all these terrific books with my readers, that's the best part. And I'm thrilled to share your book out today, I Liked My Life. And Abby Fabiaschi, I'm going to see you on February 21st at the Point Street Reading Series, but I will follow your tour as you go along, and I look forward to hearing stories when we see each other.
Oh, I can't wait to meet face-to-face. Thank you so much for taking the time and making this day even more special. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Enjoy Pub Day. As I always like to say, soak it up. It's Pub Day. Yay. Thanks, Abby.
Yay.